When my boss stole my revolutionary quantum algorithm, he thought he'd gotten away with it, but he had no idea that NASA had secretly verified and protected my discovery all along. In a stunning public showdown, my arrogant VP deleted my fake research files live on stage, exposing his betrayal to the entire world. Watch how quiet determination and meticulous planning turned betrayal into triumph, proving the power of integrity and truth. Subscribe now to uncover more incredible true stories of betrayal, justice, and redemption. Like and comment if you support standing strong against workplace injustice. They always called me the quiet girl from Lab 6, but quiet doesn't mean blind. For years, I blended into the sterile walls of Astrotech, the aerospace giant nestled just outside Silicon Valley, California. It was a place where groundbreaking discoveries were whispered behind thick glass doors, guarded by layers of secrecy. My Lab 6 sat as the end of a dimly lit corridor, distant enough to forget, but close enough to remain under watchful eyes. I liked it that way. Every morning, I swiped my badge, exchanged quiet nods with my colleagues, and lost myself in equations, simulations, and quantum algorithms. My life revolved around silence and precision, each calculation careful, each experiment meticulous. My name badge read Dr. Evelyn Harper, but to most I was invisible. And invisibility, it turns out, can be a powerful cloak. I spent nearly 3 years buried deep in an obsession, creating a quantum communication protocol capable of flawless, instantaneous data transfer across deep space. NASA had been struggling with signal losses for decades, and everyone knew solving this could rewrite humanity's place in the universe. But at Astrotech, grand ambitions were commonplace. No one noticed my quiet revolution, except, I soon realized, one person. David Hawthorne, our vice president, had the kind of smile you'd see plastered across corporate billboards, perfect teeth, confident eyes, a handshake firm enough to bruise. Hawthorne thrived on attention, parading his supposed brilliance through crowded board meetings and media interviews. People respected him, feared him. I remained skeptical. Our paths rarely crossed, until one Thursday afternoon when he appeared at the entrance of Lab 6, knocking gently, almost apologetically. "Dr. Harper?" His voice carried warmth I didn't trust. "Mind if we talk a minute?" He stepped in without waiting for an answer, glancing around my humble workspace. Screens flashed dense lines of code. Equations scribbled hastily filled the whiteboards. Hawthorne's eyes darted from one corner to another, absorbing everything in an instant. "I've heard whispers," he started carefully, leaning casually against the desk where my notes were spread out. "Something about quantum protocols could revolutionize deep space comms." I felt my chest tighten slightly, but kept my face blank. "Just theory," I responded softly. Hawthorne smiled wider, too wide. "Modesty suits you, Evelyn, but this isn't a place for modesty. Astrotech thrives on breakthroughs." He paused, his fingers tracing the edges of my handwritten notes. "The right breakthrough could redefine careers." His words lingered part encouragement, part veiled threat. Before I could reply, he turned toward the door, adding over his shoulder, "Let's keep in touch. I'd love to hear more." As the door clicked shut, my heart pulsed heavily in my chest. Alone again, I sat back in my chair, staring at the spot he'd touched, sensing the hidden undercurrents beneath his charm. My mind raced back to a warning my graduate advisor once whispered. "Evelyn, the greatest threats never come from strangers. They come from those who smile while holding your future in their hands." I pushed the unease away, returning to my research. Yet deep down, I knew that afternoon had set something irrevocable in motion. My quiet life in Lab 6 was about to unravel, and nothing, not even years of preparation, could brace me for the betrayal coming my way. I knew things were changing the moment Hawthorne showed genuine interest in my work. Weeks passed, and his visits grew frequent. always cloaked in casual conversations, questions hidden behind a veneer of curiosity. Each time he appeared, my pulse quickened, fingertips involuntarily gripping my pen tighter, betraying the unease I masked behind polite smiles and brief answers. One late evening, as the lab emptied and silence seeped through the hallways, my screen flashed an alert someone accessed my research files remotely. My heart skipped a beat, adrenaline surging coldly through my veins. Hawthorne's username blinked innocently back at me. I stared at the screen, feeling a sharp pang of betrayal pierce my chest. Disappointment twisted inside me, not just in him, but in myself, for almost trusting his superficial charm. Hawthorne quickly texted me, "Accidental access, sorry." The casual emoji, intended to soften his intrusion, only deepened my unease. The next morning, I approached Hawthorne's office, my steps steady, controlled, though beneath the surface I felt every muscle tighten defensively. His secretary glanced up, startled. "He's busy." "Just a quick word," I interrupted gently, pushing the heavy oak door open without hesitation. Hawthorne reclined leisurely in his chair, eyebrows lifting in mild surprise. "Evelyn didn't expect you." My voice remained calm, despite the fury simmering quietly within. "You accessed my files last night." He tilted his head, feigning confusion before breaking into a disarming grin. Apologies. Wrong folder. Honest mistake." I held his gaze, unflinching. "We both know that's not true." For a split second, the polished mask slipped, a flash of hardness behind those charming eyes, like seeing the edge of a hidden blade catching the light. "Careful," he said softly, leaning forward slightly, letting me feel the implied threat. "Accusations can have consequences." The air thickened between us, my breath shallow, yet I refused to back down, standing silently until he forced a strained smile again. "I'll make sure it won't happen again. Trust me." Walking away from his office, my heart hammered painfully against my ribs, not from fear, but from clarity. The betrayal I had feared had finally surfaced, veiled thinly behind fake apologies and concealed threats. I retreated swiftly to Lab 6, the familiar quiet offering comfort as my hands trembled lightly when I locked the door. That evening, in the solitude of the lab, I initiated the contingency plan I'd hoped never to use. Fingers danced swiftly across the keyboard, splitting my research into carefully concealed truths and elaborate decoys. Each keystroke steadied my nerves, the anger and hurt settling into quiet determination. I paused briefly, recalling my advisor's words with new resonance. "The smartest moves are the ones your enemies never see coming." Sitting back, watching the final encryptions fall into place, I understood clearly now that this was merely the opening move in a dangerous game. But this time I was ready. Hawthorne had underestimated me once. He wouldn't do it twice. The invitation arrived quietly, almost innocently, landing softly in my inbox like a paper bomb ready to detonate. I stared at the screen, my stomach tightening painfully as I read the glowing subject line. Astrotech Breakthrough Announcement, Quantum Compression Algorithm, presented by VP David Hawthorne. My algorithm. The room suddenly felt airless. It wasn't shock exactly. I had braced myself for something like this, but the blatant audacity still rattled me. I slowly exhaled, forcing my shaking fingers to steady, reminding myself this was exactly what I had prepared for. Yet, beneath the controlled surface, the pain cut deeper than I expected. 3 years of meticulous work, of long nights alone with coffee and calculations, all reduced to a footnote in Hawthorne's self-serving career narrative. Days passed, each one more tense than the last. Colleagues whispered excitedly about the upcoming event, oblivious to my strained silence. Meanwhile, Hawthorne carried himself with insufferable ease, smiling as if he'd already won. One afternoon, he paused near my workstation, leaning over casually, voice low but loud enough to sting. "You'll be attending, Evelyn?" I'd hate for you to miss seeing the future firsthand." His voice dripped with mock sincerity, his eyes glittering triumphantly. I met his gaze calmly, hiding the storm beneath. "Wouldn't miss it." He smirked, clearly mistaking my quiet restraint for submission. "Good. It's going to be groundbreaking." On the evening of the event, the conference hall was filled with Astrotech's elite investors, scientists, and media, all eagerly awaiting Hawthorne's revolutionary presentation. I took a seat near the back, heartbeat measured, breath slow, hands resting calmly on my lap despite the nausea twisting inside. On stage, Hawthorne stepped forward confidently, waving to applause, his sharp suit and confident smile perfectly orchestrated. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began grandly, "today, Astrotech redefines the limits of space communication." As Hawthorne spoke, my throat tightened painfully with every stolen words I'd carefully crafted late into countless nights. Yet, I kept silent, maintaining a poised facade, because I knew something he didn't. The real data, my actual quantum communication protocol, was secure, encrypted, and already quietly verified by NASA. All he had was smoke, mirrors, and my carefully planted fake. "And now," Hawthorne said grandly, turning to the giant display behind him, "I'll show you firsthand the power of my algorithm." He smiled arrogantly, clicking his remote confidently. The screen filled with lines of elegant, flawless code. My heart raced, then immediately calmed. This was the decoy? Exactly as planned. Hawthorne turned toward the audience, eyes gleaming with pride. "And to prove this technology is uniquely mine." With theatrical flair, he clicked again, deleting the original files to demonstrate exclusive ownership. But as the files disappeared, a quiet ripple of confusion spread through the hall. Hawthorne's triumphant expression froze, replaced quickly by mounting panic. The original he deleted wasn't the breakthrough, just hollow shells of data I had meticulously designed. Whispers erupted across the room. Hawthorne's eyes darted wildly, searching for answers. Then, suddenly, behind him, the screen shifted, broadcasting NASA's official live verification, my real, authentic data, time-stamped and irrefutably mine. Someone from the crowd gasped audibly, murmurs rising sharply. Hawthorne spun around, horrified, watching his carefully constructed facade crumble live on stage. I stood slowly, feeling a rush of relief wash over the ache of betrayal. Our eyes met briefly as his widened in stunned disbelief. I simply held his gaze, calm, resolute, unbroken. In that moment, everyone knew exactly who the quiet girl from Lab 6 truly was. 2 months earlier, long before Hawthorne's arrogant smile crumbled publicly on stage, I quietly boarded a flight to Washington, D.C. Officially, Astrotech believed I was attending a routine quantum computing seminar, but the truth was more delicate and far more dangerous. I sat in the lobby of NASA headquarters, watching sunlight spill softly through the tall glass windows. My pulse fluttered anxiously beneath the calm surface. Despite countless mental rehearsals, this moment felt heavy, pressing relentlessly on my chest. I adjusted my glasses nervously as footsteps echoed gently across the marble floors. "Harper?" A warm voice greeted me. I turned, meeting the steady eyes of Dr. Elaine Mitchell, NASA's lead communications scientist. Her handshake was firm, grounding me immediately. "We've reviewed your protocol. Impressive work." "Thank you," I replied softly, feeling the warmth of pride ease my anxiety slightly. We walked together into a private conference room, the doors sealing behind us. As I set up my presentation, my fingers trembled only once, betraying the intense stakes. NASA's verification could secure my research and shield it forever from men like Hawthorne. "We're prepared to test your protocol independently," Dr. Mitchell said carefully, sensing my silent urgency. "But confidentiality is paramount until the results are confirmed." "Agreed," I nodded firmly, heart racing. This must stay hidden until it matters most. For weeks afterward, my life became a delicate dance. By day, I worked quietly, appearing compliant and passive beneath Hawthorne's scrutinizing gaze. At night, hidden within the sterile silence of Lab 6, I carefully constructed digital decoys files filled with elegant equations deliberately flawed, enough to convince Hawthorne of their authenticity, yet ultimately worthless. Each fake document, carefully layered with encryption, felt like crafting intricate traps baiting him deeper into his own arrogance. I imagined Hawthorne's smug face falling, felt a grim satisfaction mingled with a subtle ache, recognizing that betrayal had turned me into someone capable of this calculated deception. In parallel, encrypted communications between NASA and myself continued secretly, confirming successful field tests of my quantum protocol via a series of classified satellite transmissions. Each verification brought quiet exhilaration proof my work wasn't just theoretical elegance, but practical brilliance. Late one evening, as I finalized yet another carefully crafted decoy, my screen lit softly with a secure message from Dr. Mitchell. Final NASA verification complete. Protocol secure. Data timestamped. You're ready. I stared at those words, heart beating rapidly in relief and anticipation. In that quiet lab, surrounded only by the low hum of equipment, I leaned back slowly, exhaling deeply. My eyes drifted shut for just a moment, savoring the weightlessness of this small, private victory. The final piece was now in place. I could have confronted Hawthorne immediately, exposed him privately, quietly, but I needed him exposed publicly, undeniably. Not simply for my vindication, but to rewrite the rules entirely. To prove intellect and integrity still meant something in a world too often governed by ego and greed. As I powered down the computer, locking away my truth behind layers of digital protection, I allowed myself one brief, knowing smile. Hawthorne had forced me into shadows, but shadows had become my advantage. Soon he'd step directly into the trap I'd set, believing himself untouchable, while never realizing I'd quietly dismantled his FOD long before it ever appeared. Silence filled the auditorium as Hawthorne stood confidently before the giant projection screen, savoring his moment. From my seat near the back, I felt a quiet, tense calm wash over me, pulse quickening subtly beneath my controlled exterior. The room darkened slightly, all eyes glued to Hawthorne as he prepared to demonstrate his alleged original algorithm. He turned dramatically toward the audience, clicking the remote in his hand. "Observe," he proclaimed with unmistakable arrogance, "the power and exclusivity of this revolutionary quantum compression algorithm." As he pressed the button, the screen lit up, rows of elegant, intricate code beginning to vanish theatrically. A hushed awe rippled through the crowd, each deleted line fueling Hawthorne's illusion of genius. My throat tightened momentarily. Despite my meticulous planning, the raw sight of my own painstaking work, dissolving fake or not, sent an unexpected pang of loss through me. But I remained calm, my breathing steady, knowing well what would come next. Then the screen flickered sharply, breaking Hawthorne's choreographed performance. Confusion spread across his face, eyebrows knitting together anxiously as the presentation he'd meticulously rehearsed disappeared, replaced suddenly by NASA's official live data feed, time-stamped and unmistakably authentic. Quantum Communication Protocol officially verified. Inventor, Dr. Evelyn Harper. NASA confidential test results confirmed. A shocked murmur exploded through the audience. Cameras clicked, flashes igniting like lightning as reporters scrambled in disbelief. Hawthorne spun toward the screen, his shoulders slumping visibly, his mouth opening slightly speechless, utterly exposed. From the corner, I watched quietly, feeling not triumph, but a strange mix of relief and subtle melancholy. My heart clenched slightly when Hawthorne's gaze finally found mine. In his eyes, I saw not just panic, but genuine regret and fear. It didn't comfort me as much as I expected. I hadn't planned on pitying him. Slowly, deliberately, I rose from my seat, sensing every eye in the auditorium turning toward me. I moved forward, footsteps measured, posture upright despite the tension knotting at the base of my spine. Ascending the stage, I faced Hawthorne directly. He looked away immediately, color draining from his cheeks. Stepping toward the microphone, I paused briefly, feeling the weight of this moment. The audience fell utterly silent, waiting for my response. I took a deep, steadying breath. In science, I spoke clearly, voice calm yet unwavering, integrity is everything. What you see behind me represents years of quiet dedication, countless sleepless nights, and unwavering commitment to truth, not opportunism. My gaze shifted momentarily back toward Hawthorne. It's tempting, I continued softly, to seek shortcuts. Ambition can blind us, causing even the brightest minds to betray themselves. I turned back toward the crowd, conviction strengthening my voice. Today isn't simply about reclaiming my research. It's about reaffirming that trust and honesty must guide our work. Without integrity, our breakthroughs mean nothing. Warm applause swelled across the auditorium, filling the space where shock had hung moments earlier. I stepped away from the microphone, heart pounding softly with quiet satisfaction tempered by sadness. Turning again briefly toward Hawthorne, I met his defeated eyes. A quiet voice within me murmured compassionately, "You chose this, not me." As I descended the stage slowly, calm and steady, I realized something profound had shifted inside me. Hawthorne's betrayal had wounded deeply, but it had also freed me, pushing me to step from shadowed silence into strength I'd never fully embraced before. The aftermath came swiftly. Hawthorne stood motionless, eyes fixed on the floor, stripped of his usual arrogance. Journalists surged forward, a barrage of questions shattering the silence. Cameras flashed relentlessly, capturing every angle of his disgrace. Stepping forward calmly, I produced documents from my folder patents, dated timestamps, confidential NASA validations, and laid them gently on the podium. These documents, I said softly but clearly, confirm the authenticity and rightful ownership of my quantum communication protocol. Every step was carefully documented, validated, and protected under intellectual property law. The room quieted again, absorbing my words. In the corner, Astrotech's CEO, Robert Sinclair, looked visibly shaken, exchanging anxious glances with his team. He approached cautiously, voice strained as he addressed the crowd. Astrotech extends our sincerest apologies to Dr. Harper. Integrity defines us as an institution, and clearly, we have failed today. We will rectify this immediately. His words rang hollow, a public relations maneuver, yet necessary. Beside him, Hawthorne remained silent, defeat etched deeply in his features. Later, as the press dispersed and the auditorium emptied, Sinclair approached me privately. "Evelyn," he began, genuine regret evident in his eyes. "I underestimated Hawthorne's ambition, and I underestimated you." I met his gaze calmly, a faint smile forming on my lips. "Most people do." He nodded slowly. "You'll have every resource, every support from Astrotech moving forward, whatever you need." "Thank you," I replied simply, feeling no bitterness. I'd won more than recognition today. I'd reclaimed something deeper, more valuable, my sense of self, dignity, and quiet strength. Before leaving the hall, I glanced once more toward Hawthorne. He sat alone, hands shaking slightly, eyes distant. For a moment, a quiet sadness touched me. Ambition without integrity always ended in ruin, a lesson he'd now painfully learned. As I stepped outside, sunlight warmed my face gently, and I breathed deeply, savoring newfound freedom. This was never about revenge. It was about reaffirming who I was. The quiet girl from Lab 6 no longer existed in shadow. She stood now firmly in the light, not because of noise or power, but because she had dared, quietly and courageously, to stand unwaveringly for truth. Weeks later, the fervor slowly faded, the headlines quieted, and Astrotech settled into an uneasy calm. Life, once overshadowed by tension and suspicion, gradually returned to normal. Yet something fundamental within me had shifted, quietly and irrevocably. One afternoon, I stood alone at the entrance of Lab 6, hand resting softly against the familiar cold metal door. The room inside was still dimly lit, computers humming gently, screens flickering patiently. For a moment, I hesitated, feeling the echoes of everything that had transpired. I stepped inside slowly, inhaling deeply. The scent of solder and sterile air felt comforting now, familiar, grounding me firmly in this place I had always belonged. I moved to my desk, fingertips brushing lightly across scattered notes, pages filled with equations that once represented secrecy and caution, now symbols of freedom and clarity. "Back already?" A voice startled me slightly. Turning, I saw Dr. Elaine Mitchell from NASA standing at the doorway, a gentle smile lighting her face. "Couldn't stay away," I answered softly, smiling back. She stepped closer, her expression thoughtful. "You know, Evelyn, after all that's happened, you could have taken your research anywhere. NASA's doors remain open." I nodded slowly, appreciating her sincerity. "I know, but this lab, it's part of me. It reminds me of who I truly am." My voice lowered thoughtfully. "I spent so long hidden here, quietly guarding my work, but now I'm here openly, for myself." Dr. Mitchell reached out, gently touching my shoulder. "Then NASA will come to you," she said warmly, smiling with quiet respect before stepping back, leaving me once again alone with my thoughts. As silence settled comfortably around me, I sat slowly at my desk, breathing softly in the peaceful solitude. I glanced toward the small mirror resting discreetly near my monitor, catching my reflection. A woman changed, yet unchanged. Eyes brightened with quiet strength. I thought briefly of Hawthorne, not with bitterness, but a gentle pity. His ambition had trapped him, while my quiet strength had freed me. Opening a fresh notebook, I began to write slowly, thoughtfully, words and equations flowing with renewed energy. Each stroke felt effortless, my thoughts clear, unfettered, alive. For the first time in years, I felt truly myself, quietly reborn from shadows into soft, unwavering light. In Lab 6, silence was no longer isolation, it was liberation. Here, in the place I'd always belonged, I'd found the truest freedom, the courage to stand quietly, powerfully, undeniably myself. Thank you all for watching this video. Please comment and let me know what you think about this story. Please like and subscribe to watch more great content on my channel.